Everybody's fighting with each other. The economy is not growing fast enough. It's contracting. Blame the president, blame the finance minister, blame Labour, blame business. Everyone seems to be fighting. Certainly we had GDP contraction and there's no clear direction for growth. And that is a big problem for South Africa. How are we going to get economic participation on a meaningful level? Luckily for us, we know bright sparks. We brought them into studio to talk about how we can use tech and innovation, take that bull by the horns and make it bellow growth. South Africa has been on the rise in the technology and fintech space for some time now, largely due to low barriers to entry in this country. Now, this is the MoneyMakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight, I'm joined in our Joburg studios by Melvyn Lubega, who is a director at Go1 online learning platform, providing training and learning opportunities to try and get positive potential in people. In other words, get them to do a full day's work. Trevor Wolfe is co-founder of Delve.io, a company that's disrupting a 620 billion rand industry through its panel of advertising and marketing experts. And last but not least, Paul Marketos, who is co-founder of IsoMetrix, a leading provider of enterprise software for governance, risk and compliance. Sounds hilarious. All of these guys are finalists in Innovation Awards. They're joining me to discuss why South Africa needs to focus more on technology and innovation to grow the economy. Now, but you're a service provider. You do nothing for growth. Convince me otherwise.
Oh, we do lots for growth. So not only do we help our customers grow their businesses and run their businesses better, but we're growing our own business and employing people directly as a result. So, we've developed some innovative technology that focuses on areas like environmental management, health, safety, quality, enterprise risk compliance. It's a fairly strong niche within the software market altogether, but there's an international demand for it. And we've expanded overseas. So we've got offices now in Canada and in Australia. And because of the exchange rate, it makes a huge amount of sense for the bulk of the work for projects that we land in those countries to come and be done, serviced here in South Africa. So we're growing here at a faster rate than our own sales, basically because of the work that comes from overseas.
Okay, that's quite convincing. That's quite convincing, Melvyn. I mean, you're in the training space. Yes. There are a lot of people doing an awful lot of stuff in the online training space. My sense of it is everybody's building something they hope NASPERS will buy one day. Is that a fair comment?
Interestingly enough, we are trying to enable others who are building a lot of content. So we are actually almost like a marketplace for a whole lot of training solutions and content that's available.
So you're the Alibaba of education.
Call us the chip advisor for education.
Okay.
We're trying to help people make better learning decisions whilst enabling organizations to better understand the learning process. So I think, as you mentioned, we help people do more work at work, but also hopefully learn outside of work.
Trying to practical example of what you do? How would I use you? I go into my laptop, here I am.
Yes.
What do I do?
Come to your laptop, you'd go to go1.com and you jump in and say, I'd like to learn X. And we take you to our marketplace of about 60,000 courses. And from there, you'll be able to choose any particular course you want to do.
Where do the courses come from?
So we partnered with a number of the leading content providers globally. So it's both local and global providers. Essentially, courses covering both personal development and professional development. But the key focus for us is trying to support career development. So you find a lot of our courses around capabilities, business skills, some compliance stuff as well, interestingly enough. So what we're trying to do is lower the barriers to access learning opportunities. Because like you mentioned, there are many places you could go for learning, and particularly courses online. The question is, where's the one true source we can actually compare these options and get a sense of which each of them are? And what we do from a next level is then say, I'd like to enroll in this course, and we provide a platform where you can actually take that course online.
We've seen this great disaggregation, if you like, of education, but still in South Africa, if you've got a piece of paper that says your name with a Harvard logo on top, people are going to regard it differently to something I learned on my computer in my bedroom at home. How do you get accreditation to make what I'm learning? Maybe, I'm sure what I'm learning is incredibly valuable. It's making me a better individual, but how does it make me more marketable and more useful in an economy?
This is quite fascinating. What we're seeing in the education space, so since my academic background was in actuarial science and education, but what you realize is that the brand names are important, but often the competencies matter. So if you get a good program, let's say from a Udemy, from a Lynda, from a Skillsoft, it can actually be seen as equivalent to a Harvard, because a Harvard won't teach you how to do a very particular developmental task, for example, within your organization. So it's almost trying to say, how do you do the on-the-job training better? Because degrees don't necessarily take you there outright.
Are people doing it in their individual capacities, or are companies retaining you to do their training for them?
Interestingly, it's a bit of both. So we find individuals coming into our platform, taking individual courses. And what we're able to do is then say, look, company X, we have 50 of your employees taking courses on our platform. how do you like us to create a learning environment for your company? And then you're able to curate, track, and also build out learning pathways for your employees. So we almost work both with companies and with individuals, but ultimately trying to get the connection between the two so we can add greater value in the learning that they do.
And Trevor, one of the greatest things, I suppose, when it comes to growing an economy is if we don't have education, if we don't have skills development, the rest of it's pretty meaningless.
Absolutely. So what we find is that, there's a great weakness in maths and science education, and it certainly impacts on jobs like programming or development. So finding strong developers in this country is harder than it should be. And what we really need to do is to focus on getting those basic skills at a younger age around maths and science, and then building on that, having much more access to courses for programming, business intelligence kind of development as well. Trevor, give me a sense of it in terms of the business that you are running, in terms of the contribution you're making, because they're helping compliance and they're being very useful. They're developing a lot of stuff in South Africa. That is good. We like them. They can stay. They're teaching South Africans how to be better people and more useful to the economy. You've got to earn your place at the table.
Okay, I'll try. So we're also adding to the growth in two folds. One is we're actually helping South African brands test the viability of their products and brands in other African countries. So making the barriers to expanding into new markets a lot easier by tapping into marketing and advertising professionals in those markets.
But that stuff's been done for years. They're called focus groups.
So yeah, it takes about 60 to 90 days and about 500,000 rand to conduct one of these focus groups in, say, Botswana or Equatorial Guinea. So we've cut down that process using technology that we built here in Johannesburg to down to 5 days and about 70K rand. So a lot easier for brands here to maybe hedge against a shaky economy here by expanding north of Limpopo into other territories.
Give me some case studies of who you've tested and how it worked.
Okay, so some of our clients are Unilever based in Durban, L'Oreal based here in Joburg. One of our favorite case studies is a whiskey brand who did really successfully here and was driving a lot of sales through advertising campaign and wanted to test the concept of that campaign in 4 different markets.
Johnny Walker doesn't work elsewhere?
It wasn't Johnny Walker, no, okay.
So Chivas Regal.
Normally what their approach would have been is task some agency to spend a couple million rand in Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, and Angola, and through our research, which was delivered in 5 days, they're able to shift their media budget and spend more efficiently in different markets, and it's given them confidence to expand their distribution, expand their sales in those markets as well.
Well, what's the difference then? I mean, is it the speed or is it the accuracy of the data that comes out?
For us, it's both. So as much as we like to compete on cost and speed for brands, we're also revolutionizing how research and insights is done. So you don't always have to commission a 1 million rand study to learn about a category in a specific market or learn about a competitive set in a specific market. There's lots of people on the ground with the knowledge already, and if you find an economic incentive for them to provide that information, it's a lot easier to connect people on the ground that have that information rather than start from scratch and do a 90-day research study.
Now, all three of you have taken old world businesses and brought them into the 21st century on a scale that you could never have done in a bricks and mortar sort of format, Melvyn.
So true.
I mean, and that's got to then be the secret of technology as the enabler.
Yeah, and I think in terms of delivery as well. So we've just about to complete a large project with an international mining house, and the entire project's been done remotely. So we've had WebEx and Skype sessions. We've had people in Brisbane, Perth, Johannesburg, Colombia, all connecting to these workshop sessions and getting the job done. So it can, with modern technology, very readily be done from here. And we're actually quite nicely located in South Africa in terms of time differences to Australia, the States, and Europe. We're actually quite central.
That argument was put forward for the call centre industry 15 years ago. Lots of promise, lots of opportunity. We grew quite sharply, and then it tapered off. And I think there's, again, a resurgence once again. I think we've got 120,000 people involved in call centres and business process outsourcing and all of that sort of stuff as a result of geography, as a result of linguistics, as a result of language. Yeah. All of that stuff puts us in a sweet spot. So why is our economy not growing if we're so blooming good at this stuff? Who wants to have a go? Trevor?
Well, I think your last guest, you're mentioning the NDP of setting that target of 90% of job growth in South Africa being achieved by SMEs. And you can either do that by growing the businesses of yesterday, which are 1 to 2 person micro enterprises, and you need 8.9 million of those to actually hit that target, or 45,000 companies like ours, which if growing at 20% per annum will hit that target. So in terms of objectives, They're on the board. Maybe the billboards aren't on the M1, and so you can't see those every day, but there's a lot of people working out there to hit that 45,000 startup figure that F&B and Endeavor put out last year.
What is the 45,000 startup figure?
Saying that 45,000 startups at the scale-up stage, about to contribute between 5 and 200 employees, is a better way to grow the economy than just relying on 1 or 2 person micro enterprises.
So where are we then in terms of that target?
There's about 5,000 startups in the South African economy right now.
And that's happened how quickly?
Over 15 years.
Okay.
So
but is this startup process a bit like compound interest? Until it hits a particular point, you don't see the magnificence of what it perpetuates.
Yeah, you need to have almost like a culture of it, I think. Because
and the ecosystem. You guys like that word. Ecosystem, you love that word. But you've got to create the environment in which it's happening. So are you guys, do you feel as if you're in that environment which is you're talking to each other, you're seeing opportunities of what you can do for each other and what each other can do for you?
Well, and we're part of the Endeavor network. So Endeavor is an organization that's been set up to help grow entrepreneurial companies and identify high impact entrepreneurs, and then they certainly do connect us all over the place. So you then mentor other potential entrepreneurs, and it becomes this kind of self-fulfilling virtuous cycle. So, I mean, there are organizations like that that have made a huge impact on entrepreneurship in the country, and they're not the only ones. There are many of them, but maybe not as much support from other sources as well.
Okay, I mean, let's hit pause, because I want these guys to come back again, and I want them to talk about the ecosystem. I want them to talk about this compounding effect of over the last 5,000 years. There may have been 5,000-ish tech startups in South Africa. Some would have grown exponentially, some would have bombed, some people would have given up and gone back into corporate, some would have taken their bright ideas outside of the country. How do we keep the bright ideas here, and how do we utilize those bright ideas to drive the growth we need in South Africa? Paul Marketos, who's co-founder of IsoMetrix, Melvyn Lubega, who is director at Go1, and Trevor Wolfe, co-founder at Delve.io, talking more about technology next time on the MoneyMakers.